Welcome to another episode of Shots from the Winchester podcast, where we explore leadership topics from a variety of perspectives. This podcast is brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. I'm your host, Al Green, and today we're going to have an awesome conversation about AI with Scott Hopp.
Awesome.
Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Let's get into a conversation about AI.
Yeah.
Because I've been so excited about AI, and there's been so many new things coming out that are scary, but at the same time are like really, really intriguing when you start to think about how useful this is as a tool. One of the first questions I want to get into is, how do we prevent ourselves from going obsolete? Because that's one of the biggest questions that I hear people talk about, like, oh, AI is going to take my job. You know? Like, how do we prevent that?
That is a valid concern, especially with AI. That's probably the main concern I hear outside of, privacy and safety concerns. But in order to not go obsolete, I think we all need to just realize that this technology is here. It's a thing. And it's not just some imaginary, fairy tale. It's here now. So I think to prevent ourselves from going obsolete, we need to just, accept that fact, find ways to incorporate it into our work and also our life, and, stay ahead of the curve as much as we can. It's not going to replace us, but I strongly believe that it's going to, make us all better, more efficient, save us time on those more routine and monotonous tasks. And really just take, ourselves to the next level because you have AI supporting you. So it's not going to replace you, but it will take everything to the next level. Looking at the other end of the spectrum, let's say you don't get on the AI train. You might become obsolete one day, because you're not going to perform the same level as everyone else does. And, compete at the same level. So it's definitely something that you want to try to get ahead of as much as you can. I know in the last year, with OpenAI and everything, it's been a lot more mainstream, but finally we have all the tools here to start learning ourselves, figure out ways to implement it into our lives. I use it even day-to-day life outside of work every day. Every day. So some crazy projects using AI. So.
And there's something to be noted about AI, especially the open AI and everything like that. These are not smart like the way you think like AI is smart. Like you think, oh, there's some brain in a computer somewhere that's thinking. It's taking information that already exists, and it's extrapolating that and it's creating things that you're asking for. So it's more of a prompt based type of technology. That it is now. This is not a quantum computer.
100%.
Yeah.
I think a phrase that applies greatly that I've learned in an AI class I was in a couple months ago is the garbage in, garbage out mentality. AI is only as beneficial as the data you provide it, your input. Your output is only as great as your input. So if you just ask it, tell me about quantum physics. I mean, that's so broad, but if you train it on quantum physics, train it on project management, and just give it data that it can work from, not only will it reference, past information, but it can also forecast future decisions for you too.
Wow. Yeah. Now that's very, very good for a business, especially like a business like Greencastle, to be able to leverage that type of technology. For future work, especially working with our clients and things. A lot of our clients are starting to move into this world as well, which is why Greencastle has been adapting AI and trying to make it so that clients understand what AI actually
is. Especially with how new it is, I think the main concern, outside of going obsolete is working through those privacy concerns. How does this technology utilize data that could be confidential or sensitive? I strongly believe that there are ways to use AI without sending that information to the world. But I think the possibilities are endless, especially being in the project management sphere, utilizing AI. For example, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here is you could utilize meeting transcripts from Microsoft Teams, create a AI chatbot that can utilize the transcripts and create meeting notes, create user feedback, identify any risk or issues that you might not see. I utilized this on just some, internal Greencastle calls where we didn't have sensitive or confidential information, and it worked out very well. I mean, I created, instead of manually typing meeting notes every single meeting, it automatically did it, and it analyzed, future risk and concerns. Taking it one step further, you can really create another AI bot, so to speak, that utilizes all the data from those meeting transcripts and all the meetings and inputs from the week, and it can create status reports for you too. So.
Now, when you're talking about creating an AI bot, now let's look at ChatGTP for instance. The ChatGTP 4 option, this was like a $20 a month upgrade that you make for this. It's a little bit more active than the 3.5 or 3.7 that's out now. When you start talking about creating a chat bot, you're creating something with prompts based on what you want specifically.
For sure.
You're asking it to give you these input points.
So it's with sticking to OpenAI, because there's a bunch of different ones out now. With OpenAI, if you have that premium or plus subscription, you get access to custom GPTs. So you can create your own custom GPTs. For example, the meeting bot or the status bot, or you can create one for any of the knowledge areas for IT project management. Even outside of work, I mean, the custom GPTs, like what I've kind of taken a hobby at is finding a way to use AI for anything. Like, okay, how can I automate this or automate that? Me personally, one of my hobbies is going to the gym, and at my gym they have what they call an in-body scan. You step on this scan, it does some scientific stuff that I don't want to speak about, but it checks your body fat percentage, your weight, skeletal muscle mass, even like your left bicep compared to your right bicep in terms of size.
Oh, wow.
And it gives you a printout of data. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what we can do with this data. And it gives you a printout. So I created a custom GPT that reads all of the data, your basal metabolic rate, your, caloric expenditure and all that stuff. And it took that data and created a optimal meal plan. So I created an optimal meal plan for, 4 meals a day. Coming off a vacation, I did not follow it the last few days. But anyways, it created a meal plan. But then it's like, okay, how can we take this step further? I took that meal plan, created a automated shopping list. And now with, OpenAI, they have API integrations. And API, for those that don't know, it's essentially that middleware. Integration between one system to another system, that middle ground. They have APIs out there now where you can take your custom GPT or your API to an app like Instacart. So then you can take that shopping list and automate your grocery shopping. So I went from the in-body scan at the gym to the most optimal food to eat at my doorstep. I didn't have to go shopping. But I think this mentality, what I'm trying to get at here, is what we need to implement as project managers or as change managers, utilizing the data that we're given anywhere and find ways to make it the most efficient, take it to the next level, because that next level, it's coming since AI's here. So.
That kind of bridges into the conversation of how do we leverage AI for business?
And every single aspect of it, really. I mean, going from reporting to status reports, day-to-day operations, working within an agile environment, you have so much data at hand. You can not only make decisions on the spot, but you can forecast risks or concerns that might happen that you might pass over as a human, because AI can capture every single data point where, personally for me, I kind of lose attention after 30 seconds.
True. Honestly, that is like so much more efficient. There's so many things that like I'll lose track of. There's emails that I'll lose track of. There's like messages that may come through. Anything like that. If you can plug that into an AI chatbot that can respond. And that just sounds like the easiest possible way for you to like function and have your life.
Because like you look at the natural, project life cycle, the IPEC process, initiation, planning, execution, and closure. You can implement AI in every single aspect of that. Initiating the project, planning the project. Let's say you're analyzing business requirements. You can utilize AI to help you find the most efficient answer to those requirements. The execution phase, monitoring and following status and progress. And I mean, you can use it any step of the way.
Yeah.
I could talk about it for hours, honestly.
Honestly, I could talk about it too. Or how can the utility industry leverage AI?
So I'll start. That's all right. Kind of when we worked on our last podcast, right? We took the last 10 minutes. I think we were actually talking about AI, and I mentioned that AI is a very broad term. One aspect of it, right? We were talking about just the whole decision sort of modeling, right? It can be considered artificial intelligence. One aspect I think that's a great use in the utilities industry is sort of maintaining the grid, right? So you can have a lot of these early fault detection programs that are out there where you actually have special sensors that can be attached in the system that can basically determine when things will fail before they're going to fail, right? So if you think about it, what would you rather have as a consumer? Your power goes out and then the electric company comes out and fixes your power. Or do you want them to say, hey, that pole and those transformers and all that stuff is going to fail probably within the next 6 months. Let's go out and proactively replace it, and we can do all the switching so that people don't actually lose power. Right? So it's better for the customer, it's better for the utility itself, and it's just better overall.
That's pretty cool. And then how does that balance out for like alerts as well? Maybe is there an automation format for that? Like when, for instance, over the weekend, I heard a transformer explode in my neighborhood and the power went out, and everyone that is attached, to their bill got an alert automatically that says, hey, we know the power is out. We're going to get on that, and like we should get your power back on in short time. Kind of thing.
So I think with the goal with the early fault detection type stuff would be to prevent even the need for messaging, right? Because it should be hopefully seamless. Now maybe they'll say, hey, some of our people will be out working in your area, right? Maybe that's sort of the alert that would come out, but it's not. These things are designed to prevent the emergencies, right? If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Anything that?
Yeah. So my thoughts is like not only for the preventative maintenance aspect of it, but the optimization of the grid. Kind of looking at it from like the whole picture here. You have generation, the production of power. Then you have transmission, taking it from those power plants to substations. Then the last part of the equation, you got distribution going from those substations to your house.
Right.
So AI can be leveraged in all aspects of that to not only keep optimal runtime, but also optimizing the grid as well. So that could be done through the use of smart meters. Preventative maintenance, like Brad was talking about. Not only that, but using AI to analyze the weather compared to seasons. So then you can do demand forecasting. So AI can be leveraged in all three of those facets, and then ultimately, utilities are there to produce power and keep power going. So
that makes sense, especially like in the icy seasons when lines are dropping. You need linemen out there to like work on these things. Is AI going to be so useful to an industry that they're just going to say, hey, we don't need people here anymore? How do you feel about that?
I can take a stab at this one. So there's two things that I'm thinking here. Is one, I don't think it's going to replace jobs. It's going to replace tasks. So a lot of taking, like, for example, in the utilities industry, a lot of forms are still manual, pen and paper. So AI can take it to the automated aspect of it through, multiple different systems such as like SAP or what have you. So there's that automation aspect of it. Now, in terms of replacing jobs as a whole, I don't think it'll replace jobs, but you do need to adopt this or else you're going to get left behind. Right. Just simply through the state of competition and, how the market is trending towards AI and, increased data analytics. So I don't think it's going to replace, but if you don't adopt it, you're going to get put behind essentially. So
that's potential with everything, especially in new industries and new technologies. If you don't adapt, you're more than likely going to get left behind. You have something you want to add?
It's exactly the right point, right? Because what this technology is going to let us do is basically upskill ourselves or give us more time to do that more deep thought work, right?
Yeah.
To what Scotty was saying, right? If you're spending 5 or 6 hours a day on these like repetitive mundane tasks, right, then that is your job, is to be the task monkey. If you can task monkey things away to this AI or to any other automation system, then that gives you more time to do better, more creative, deeper stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what most companies are looking for, right? They want to keep the human capital that they have and make them better, because then that drives up, profits and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this is something that you just mentioned, right? We see it all the time with any sort of technological advancements. There's a concern about jobs going away, and some of them might, right? But what ends up happening is that new opportunities are created and people can reskill into different industries, or just trying to understand how to use the tools in their new industry, right?
Right.
If that kind of makes sense.
So let's not worry about losing our jobs. Let's look at maybe evolving into new positions as AI approaches, more usage, or as AI finds more use.
One use case that I'm thinking about already is like, when you call the help desk, hey, my power's out, what do I do, type of thing. AI can be leveraged in a way to increase that customer experience. So instead of, potentially being on a, waiting line for 45 minutes or however long, you're going to be speaking to an AI, bot or what have you, to get those solutions that you need, or hopefully get to a solution while you're waiting for a human. So overall, it's just going to increase that customer satisfaction of the users within the utility companies as well. So
now, is that something that we can do here at Greencastle? Can we provide that kind of service for like a utility service?
I'll leave it up to Brad on that one. Yeah. I'm going to put my name on that.
Right. So
sure we could.
So we're strategy execution consultants, right? Like that is our task. We execute people's strategies through project management, process improvement, change management, throw in financial controlling, budget control, and data and analytics, right? So if we're looking at doing a digital transformation, right, adding in AI into our business, particularly if we're using, say, like chatbots or whatever, we can certainly work on implementing that strategy, right? Yeah. That's where I think we're key. We also have our expertise in sort of knowing what is available and what's out there to suggest to our clients of what they can implement. Nice. I did want to hop right back about the, hey, is this going to take all of our jobs, right?
Right. Yes.
And just to foot stomp a little bit, like this has been a question that's been going on since the Industrial Revolution.
It's true.
Right. And I always got to bring things back to Star Trek because I'm a big Star Trek nerd, right? And that's where I learned about, so the Industrial Revolution in England, right? They had the Luddites, right? Then you also had the folks in somewhere on the continent. I think it was either Denmark or the Netherlands. I always confuse the Danes and the Dutch, unfortunately. But where they would take their clogs, right? Their sabots, and they would kind of toss them into the machines, doing sabotage or sabotage, right? That's kind of where the term comes from.
Okay.
Which I learned from watching Star Trek 6 years and years and years ago. Yeah. So this has been a question that we've been wrestling with for centuries, right? Yeah. And ultimately what ends up happening is that there's change. And, just like I always kind of, whenever I'm on the podcast, I always talk about change management is key, right? We just have to know as individual employees and as people who are leading our companies to basically just manage that change.
And we've had a conversation already on legacy, as far as legacy, and then like transitioning into like cloud-based type services and stuff like that. Can you speak to like how that would affect someone in an industry like the utilities industry, not taking advantage of those AI components?
Yeah. Well, I think the use case is already there. I mean, especially within the utilities industry, you have those opportunities for optimization. And that's where AI definitely shines through and through. And, I don't think it's going to be a fad just simply because the value's there already. I feel like with the fad, like those trends might kind of diminish over time, but that value will be there as long, like forever.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, right? So if we think about what we're talking about, the use case, right? Going back to the, hey, is this going to steal my job question? And our argument is that no, it's going to actually give you the opportunity to do better, more valuable work for your company.
Yeah.
So if they look at it from the company perspective, if you don't adopt these technologies or you don't seriously consider adopting these technologies, you're basically consigning your people to still do these mundane tasks. Whereas your competitor may, basically they now are leveraging the human brain for doing what it's really good at, which is creative work and deep thought and strategy, right? Instead, you're kind of taking a chunk of those people's days and you're consigning them to typing away on a keyboard, doing the stuff that could be automated away.
So you're taking that aspect of like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And yeah, if it's not broke, that's okay. It's fine if you're going to do that. But your competition might be running circles around you because they're taking advantage of something that's making their work a lot
Another
easier.
thing too, like the reason why I keep hitting this optimization part is because it's saving time and resources. That alone saves money, right? So it's just going to have that trickle down effect to the end user, which is the customer. So I feel like this optimization aspect will, provide benefits to the end user.
Yeah.
And, everybody kind of wins in that sense.
So utility industry needs to be taking advantage of this, especially. Yeah.
There's data everywhere.
I think so.
And whenever you have data, you can use AI.
Yeah. We're going to have a conversation about legacy to cloud-based systems. And now this is kind of really important, especially for like utility companies and larger businesses that are looking to transition from some of the older systems, maybe some of the systems that they have on site, to cloud-based systems. And how we do that, especially here at Greencastle, because I think there's a lot of companies out there that don't understand how to do this. I feel like some of them feel like there's a security issue when it comes to moving something from a legacy, which was like on-site type servers, to an online type of server, like a cloud server. Can you guys just jump in? Let's just jump into the first question here. How does a company like a utility company move from an older legacy system into a cloud system? Anyone?
Yeah. So Al, you mentioned some security risks with data, right? There's going to be a lot of risks, whether they're security, budget overruns, personnel. So one thing I'd throw out up front is just good risk mitigation, risk management. So something we refer to a RAID log, tracking risk issues, key decisions, things of the sort. Basically what that comes down to is proper governance. So are you are you seeing these risks out in front before they hit you? So you're not reacting to them. So I'll lead in with that just to say proper governance is important for decision making, risk monitoring, et cetera.
Yeah. I'll follow up with that one. Yeah, Danny nailed it. I mean, I think that's one thing we do well compared to maybe other project managers, and not to put them down, but whereas they might focus more on just straight schedule, budget, like the big three there. We very much go in heavy-handed with a good RAID log. We like to anchor down the risks. We like to identify the risks, communicate them to the stakeholders, make sure everybody's aware of the impact they might have on what, to who, so that there's no surprises. And it's really just, it's not overly complicated when you do that. You'll have your technical experts who will really help you identify those risks. It's up to you as a strong, leader of the project or just, consultant to make sure that everybody knows what could happen and when, to make sure that those don't impact the project. Now, some stuff will happen anyway, but as long as everything is communicated well, you can really mitigate a lot of stuff. So us going in with the proper framework and really nailing home, proper cadences, proper communication, proper processes, sets us apart in a lot of ways. And it's a lot of just brilliance in the basics.
Nice. And being a veteran-owned and operated company, I feel like that's the kind of value that we bring to the table, having that structure and having that cadence, like you said, that, stick forward or stick to itness.
Yeah,
and getting the job done.
Exactly.
So how does Greencastle handle this transition for a company?
Yeah, so one thing we could help with is really coming up with the playbook, right? So these tend to be long projects, right, or programs. There may be multiple transitions from legacy to cloud-based systems over the course of years at a company, right? And so with that, you're going to have personnel shift over time. You're going to have people come and go for whatever reason, both in the IT space as well as on the business side. So really what we help do is we help come up with a playbook that if a new player comes on the team, they can see the playbook and know how this team operates. So what does that mean? That looks like a good project charter, a good project management plan, clear governance. A lot of people at companies like to maybe point fingers at consultants at a time as like PowerPoint wizards, right? And we own that without shame because we do feel it provides value to have something firm that can be maintained over time and provide clarity to stakeholders as they enter and exit the project. So with that too, I'd say that the succession planning, that seems a little off topic, but we need to make sure that a new leader comes in. The old leader has a clear plan to communicate what's important, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're achieving it. Because we've seen many times where leadership will change mid-project, and maybe a different leadership style or something may throw the project awry, which it's okay to shift over time, but we need to make sure that that's an intentional succession planning, and that the current playbook is understood and modified, instead of kind of just being a start from scratch whenever there's new stakeholders or leadership.
Nice.
Yeah, I think making everything customizable to the projects themselves, and doing kind of like audits throughout. It's definitely okay as you're going through a long-term project, as people change and stuff, to kind of pause and say, is this still working? Is this process still working? Do you guys understand the process? Do you understand why we do this? Do you understand how to do this? Because a lot of the people we work with are extremely skilled in the areas that they're specialized in, but they're not project managers maybe. So they don't, you say, hey, put a risk into the RAID log, and they put it in, you're kind of like, oh, that's not how you do it, but they're not supposed to know. That's your job. So I think making sure that you work with these people, again, just over communicating to a point where they just feel really comfortable with the processes. And like Danny said, the PowerPoint stuff, like writing it down, getting it out there, making sure it's communicated, they know where to find it. We go into a lot of places where even if things are going well, none of this stuff is written down. None of the processes are. Very large companies. And not to say it's a bad thing, but there's a lot of single points of failure when you do that. A lot of institutional knowledge can go out the door when 2 or 3 people leave. So to have everything simplified, broken down, written down, where people can find it, everybody's aware of it, again, just really helps a project run smoothly.
Nice. And just in case they don't know what the difference between a legacy system is and a cloud-based system, can we just kind of throw that definition out there just so people understand what that means?
Yeah, so a legacy-based system is something that's generally going to be maintained on premises. So whatever the company is, call it company X, they're going to have to maintain their own IT infrastructure, the hardware, the staff to maintain the hardware. And sometimes there's homegrown software systems as well. It could be, an out-of-the-box software system that's just maintained on-prem. But essentially that comes with a lot of overhead and burden, which some companies can do, but they're not great at, right? We think of finding efficiencies in international trade or something of the sort. It's like we could grow pineapples here in the mainland of the U.S. in the lower 48, but it's easier to grow them in Hawaii, and they're good at it, and they know what they're doing. So why try to set up all that infrastructure and stuff here when they're really good at it, and it's mutually beneficial if we form that relationship, right?
Right.
So that's why a company might want to transition to the cloud, is because, okay, they could run their own IT infrastructure, but they're probably not going to be as good at it. There's probably more risks that they don't know about it. When you could kick it to a cloud-based system, whether it's AWS or what have you, that is set up and dedicated to these things. So it really becomes a win-win scenario. But the bottom line, to answer your question, is it's taking things from being maintained by the client on premises to being maintained by a company who does data management, IT infrastructure as their primary activity.
Nice. That's a great breakdown. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And a lot of times over time, it's not like the legacy was the wrong choice or anything like that.
Right.
At the time, it probably was a great choice. It probably was the tip of the spear in terms of technology. So as this stuff grows and everything and things become more available, it becomes a better choice.
So you take a company like an electric utility company, they're not going to be on the cutting edge of database management and efficiency in that regard. And so when you take a company and you try to make something work that's not your primary activity, you could hire 1 or 2 experts in the field who are good at that, but you're also going to have to maintain a staff. And part of the costs that companies don't always consider, we see this a lot with our data analytics service offering, because in our data analytics service offering, we tend to serve business units, right? Companies have big IT departments. They're usually pretty good. We can help them out if they have a temporary project where they need extra assistance or a second set of eyes for 3-6 months. But when we get embedded in an operational business unit to help deliver data analytics to them, that is something they could do in-house, right? Just like a company can maintain these legacy systems in-house. But one thing you have to consider in that cost that's often overlooked is when you're going to have people doing that job, say that data analytics job, what you have to provide with that is going to be management, right? So you're going to have to make sure that you have a management structure in place that knows how to manage that talent. You're going to have to put in place training so that that talent is being trained in maintaining that cutting edge, et cetera, right? So just like in that data analytics sphere, you're going to have all this supporting infrastructure in order to be able to enable that within the business instead of outsourcing it. It's the same thing with these legacy systems is you're going to have not just a few experts in these areas, but a whole infrastructure set up to a whole department set up to maintain that infrastructure and those legacy systems. So that's kind of an often overlooked cost because it's an ancillary cost, yet a big one that companies need to consider when they're thinking about shifting to the cloud.
Nice. That kind of pushes us into another part of the conversation where I want to ask about how do companies save money moving into this cloud system? Is there a savings there? Is there a way for them to mitigate costs like losses, things like that?
I mean, it's just like Danny kind of said there. Like, it can be cumbersome maintaining that department. You know, and when you're going through it, when there's no other options, you don't really notice it. It's just business as usual. But when, you know, the cloud-based system comes along, or whatever, new software even, you know, it all falls into the same kind of bucket there. You know, you really do get to put down what is the return on investment here. Like, I can run this with one person. It's mostly automated. It's more efficient. I can get more efficient data out of it. And it's just at the cost of, you know, to the company that we're working with for the cloud-based system. And then you can shift, you know, the focus of those, the people who are in the department of managing, you know, that data. Because a lot of times what I've seen, and Danny, I don't know if you know this is true, but these people are working, it's not just their primary focus. It's usually like they start there and then they start to be like, oh, you can do multiple other things. Let's get you involved. So it's like their third focus in what they do. It's usually a cumbersome manual, sort of, you know, whatever they need to do with the data. But yeah, it's just a really kind of an easy ROI, but just here's the cost of the cloud-based system. Here's what it costs to manage it. Here's what it costs to manage what we have right now, which is, you know, probably a lot. So,
wow. Nice.
Yeah. And then I have two thoughts there. So one is really predictability is something that comes with cloud, because you go to, like, essentially it may be variable to a sense, but you go to a predictable, essentially monthly payment or some contractual, you know, payment schedule. Whereas with maintaining on-prem systems, you may have large capital expenses for new server hardware unexpectedly, right? So you take basically an intermittent high CapEx spend to a more predictable spend over time. So it's easier when these companies are trying to set their budgets and manage cash flow. It could be easier for that. And then the second thing I'd throw out is we started the conversation with risks, right? So when you go to any of these cloud providers, one of the main things you're going to see probably on their homepage is their uptime percentage, right? So 99.98% uptime or what have you. That's critical to these businesses. You think an electric utility company, a hospital, anything of the sort, if their data goes down, inaccessible, their applications go down for 10 minutes, that could have a major effect, right? On their operations, on their customers, on their reputation. So essentially going to the cloud, you mitigate some of the risks of, you know, issues with on-prem systems. And you ensure essentially the business upside of always having your systems on and available.
Definitely leave some comments. Let us know what you thought about this conversation, and we'll see you in the next episode.